morning's class is our rentals class. We're going to go over how to set up our rental inventory, whether using serial numbers or not, what we can do as far as once that inventory is set up, track repairs on the rental equipment, entering a new rental transaction all the way through a couple different ways you can bill for that rental. Also putting that rental either using a task to manage deliveries, pickups, exchanges, or the route schedule. So a lot to go over. To start, the first thing we need to do before we can really do anything with the rental side of our software is set up our inventory. I highly recommend using serial numbers just because it is carried out through the rest of our software. You have a lot of features you can use if you serialize your inventory, and it may just be nothing but an internal number at this point. But I do recommend setting it up here, and to get here we would just go to Rental Info, Rental Inventory List. This is where we can set up the inventory we have available to rent out. If you want the software to track how much inventory you have, and then when you're doing a new rental, being able to, for our software to tell you what is available, you need to do serial numbers. Now to set up an item, this drop-down is my QuickBooks item list. So all this requires is for us to have a couple items in QuickBooks for the items we rent. For instance, if I select PT for portable toilet, and this one maybe is 1001, I don't need an item PT1001 in QuickBooks. I just need one item for each kind of category or each different piece of equipment you rent. So if I had two of these, I could just put in PT again, 1002. Now I can set a daily, weekly, and monthly charge. Maybe this is 8 per day. It'll ask you, do you want to auto-calculate basically the weekly and monthly charge? We can hit yes. Need to put an item in. There we go. Now, once you put the serial number in, you can actually double-click the serial number. And this gives us a lot more options we can track. It takes us to this item's detail. So this is specific to this piece of equipment. You see we have a ton of custom fields, and you can set these custom fields just by clicking in the white space and typing a name. We do have a lot of those fields set up for you. The fields in the far left column are static, like warranty end date, manufacturer serial number, purchase price, date purchase, vendor condition, size. All of these you can set. I can go to actions and I can see any action this unit was ever billed on, and I can see a total, basically a total revenue that this unit has earned. I can see any repairs related to this piece of equipment. I also could go into billing history and again see every time this unit was billed. I can also go into File Link and hit Browse here, and this is where I could attach a picture of this unit. You can really attach any type of document. It doesn't have to be a picture, whether you have maybe your original documentation for this piece of equipment. You could attach that in here. You could also attach any hard copy invoices from billing back to this unit. Jeremy, I'm getting a little feedback from your micro. Okay, you muted. Perfect. Thank you. Up in the top right here, we see we have metrics. This is going to show me a total of income and repairs for this unit. So some nice information. We only get this if we use serial numbers. Now, those couple custom fields that you could set up on that page are displayed up here across the top, so you'd have them right on the list. Now, it's important to note when setting up rental inventory on this list, we do not pick who it's rented to. We leave that blank. This actually gets filled in when we create a rental transaction. Now, we do have a nice thing. I can hit bulk add serial numbers. So this would allow me to pick, let's say, PT. I could put in my charges. I could tell it to add 50 to my inventory, and my starting serial number that I wanted to use, the next one on my list is 1004. I can hit add. It's going to add 50 of these to my inventory and number them for me automatically. So if you don't already use serial numbers and you have a lot of equipment and you want to take advantage of some of these other features, that's probably the easiest way, just to give your inventory a generic number for right now. Now at the top here, I can go into rental repair list. This is going to show me any piece of equipment that's currently, basically, that has had a repair task or some sort of service call. And it's a running history on all your equipment. I can hit view barcode, and it's going to automatically take my serial number and turn it into a barcode for me. We are compatible by doing rentals through barcodes. You can get a USB or wireless or Bluetooth barcode scanner for the PC. You could scan the physical inventory itself, or you could, through our software, print a barcode list, which is the next option in the top right. This is going to give me basically a list that you could put in a book of all your inventory with the unique barcode. Once we've set up our inventory, we can actually start creating a rental transaction. So to do that, I could go to rental info and enter a new rental. From here, I could pick the customer. Their information is loaded onto the rental transaction for me. The next thing I would want to go down and do is pick my item. So here's where I could put in PT or whatever your piece of equipment is that you're renting. Go right over to serial number, and it's going to show me all my available units. Now the default I have, since my billing increment is set to monthly, it's going to show me the monthly price for this unit. I have the option to prorate, run once, which we'll get into in just a minute. I do want to note that anything that's blue and underlined in our software, you can double-click to kind of get more information. So if I double-click the serial number, it again takes me to the item detail. But if I double-click the price, it's actually going to bring a pop-up to show me the actual daily, weekly, and monthly charge for that unit. Prorate allows our software to automatically calculate this unit's total billing when it's due to be billed at the end of the month. So if they rented something out, or if a customer rents something out in the middle of a billing cycle, if it's marked to be prorated, the first bill is going to be a little bit smaller. It's going to be billed from the delivery date to whenever you run your billing, not a full month. If you always wanted to bill a full month regardless, you can just turn off the prorate option. So even if they rented the day before you run your billing, it'll generate a full month's invoice for that customer. You see here we have the delivery date. We can set this. We have the build through date. Now on a new transaction, I always recommend leaving the build through date to whatever it's defaulting to. It'll automatically be filled in for you based on the delivery date. This acts as the starting date for billing for this unit. So as of right now, this unit would be billed from the 7th going forward to whenever we end our billing cycle, or whenever we run billing. We have an option. We can have multiple pieces of equipment, basically lines on this rental, each one with a different billing increment. Some that is just out there short-term, daily, and a mixture with some long-term equipment that you're going to be billing monthly. Now we'd also want to put on any extra service charges right onto this rental transaction. So if you have a delivery fee, I could put on my delivery fee. Maybe it's a $15 delivery fee, and I just want to tell it to run once. I'm going to set my billing increment to flat rate. Doing this means that it's only going to be billed on this unit's first billing. This customer would have that $15 delivery charge. And I'm telling it to be flat rate because I just want it to charge the $15. I don't want it to do any calculation or prorating or anything like that based on how long the unit's been rented. So any one-time charges you want that you have to charge the customer, you can put run once. When you do your first billing, the date run is going to be filled in to let you know that this unit was billed in whatever date it was. Now, a nice feature, let's say we have 8 or 9 lines on here. We want to kind of group the equipment together. Well, let's say I wanted to go back and add another portable toilet onto the rental. If I scroll to the right a little bit, you'll notice the order column with the number that's blue and underlined. So I can simply just double-click the number 2, and it's going to ask me, do I want to insert a line? So it inserts a blank line right before the number you double-click. So now I could go back to that blank line and fill in my item. Again, not showing me 1001 in this list because we have it already rented out on the line above it. So it only shows me what's available in this drop-down for the serial number. I can put in any transaction notes. This is an internal note field only visible on the desktop here when you open up this rental. You can put in any delivery or pickup notes visible to the driver. And to save this transaction, all I have to do is hit close in the top right. If I go to items rented, that's going to show me everything I currently have out on rent. Now you see I've got 3 lines here, all with invoice number 190. That's just letting you know on the transaction or invoice number 190 we have 3 things. We've got 2 toilets and a delivery fee. So if you've got 8 or 9 or 10 lines on a rental transaction, you're going to see that same invoice 8 or 9 times here. It looks like it's going to be duplicated, but it's really not. If we double-click any one of these numbers, it's going to take me to the same transaction. Now, if I go back to our inventory list, what we were first looking at, rental info, rental inventory list, it now shows me who this equipment is rented to. That's why I recommended not to fill in that rented to. It's automatically populated when you do a rental transaction. This way, at any given time, I could go and look up a customer and see what they have rented. Now I have a nice drop-down where I could print, let's say, a delivery, hit print. I can do the same thing. I could do a pickup ticket. I can also print a quote. If I need to invoice and send an invoice with the driver, I can also print an invoice right from this rental transaction. The nice thing about rentals and RR is everything you need to do for this transaction all managed right on this one screen. And this brings us to kind of our next option here is how we're going to notify a driver or track a delivery or a pickup or a swap or exchange, something of that nature. You have two ways. You can either use the route schedule or you can use tasks. And the big distinction between the two is route schedule is reoccurring. A lot of our portable toilet companies or a lot of our rental companies that do a weekly along with the rental use the route schedule to manage everything. Pickups, deliveries, and the weekly service or biweekly service. A lot of our waste management companies or bin rental, I see them using a lot more of tasks because they're one-time services. Basically, you're doing a delivery, you're picking up a bin, you're swapping it out, you're doing a pickup, something along that line. To use tasks, it's real easy. We have a drop-down at the top. What do we need to create? A delivery task, pickup, or an exchange. So I could maybe do delivery task, hit create task. It takes me right into task detail, pre-fills everything for me, lets me know this is a rental delivery. Here's everything on the rental. I then could pick my assigned to and pick my driver, let's say. Then I go into rentals and I could hit get rentals. It's going to show me everything this customer has rented, and I'm going to select the 2 units here. This is for tracking on the task. And just go and hit close, and that's going to create my task. If I hit the home button top right, it's going to take me to my task. You'll see we have a delivery task created. If you're using our mobile solution, the guy would have his handheld. He would look at his task list. He would see he has a delivery assigned to him. He'd be able to open up that task and see the rented equipment that needs to be delivered. Let's go back to items rented and open up the transaction again, and let's look at the other way you can manage a pickup or delivery. That's by using routes. So if we go to the right here, you have an option to select a route, a frequency, and a date. So I could assign this to a driver. I could pick my frequency of, let's say, delivery, and I could pick a delivery date, let's say today. And then I can hit put on route. That's simple. Now, if you are in portable toilet industry and you're also doing, let's say, a weekly or biweekly or monthly service along with this rental, the easiest way to do it is right after you put it on the route for delivery, just select maybe, let's say, weekly service. You're going to put it on bills weekly as well, and then let's say first service date. If it's being delivered on a Tuesday, maybe the first service date is the following Tuesday, the 15th, put on route. Now, if I click my route schedule button, you're going to see I have a delivery set up for that customer, and then I have a weekly recurring service set up for that same customer. The nice thing is I could go to route info. I could go print route sheets, and I could print a schedule maybe for my driver, print bill schedule for today, and I could do the drop down with rentals. this would show me all of his stops for today and any rental information associated with it. Now, I've created the frequencies called delivery. So if I just double-click in the frequency field, you'll see I've created the delivery, which length of day 0 means it doesn't reoccur, and it's going to delete itself after we basically advance the schedule. Same with the pickup, length of day 0, delete after posting route, and then I have the weekly service, which is length of day 7, and that's always going to stay on the route schedule. The date's just going to roll forward every week. Now I have another way to manage the items I'm renting using serial numbers. Let's go and enter a new rental transaction. I can just select a customer, and I could go down, pick my equipment or whatever I'm renting, and I could just go right over to quantity. We're renting 5 of this at So if you're not tracking serial numbers, this is how I can manage using, I can just leave that field blank. Now, even if you are tracking serial numbers, you can always enter rental without a serial number because you may not know what's being delivered until after the fact. The driver may then turn in his paperwork and let you know, hey, we delivered this, this, and this. Here are the numbers. Then you could go back in and put them in so you could start tracking it. Now, we do have an option. I have seen some of our customers that do rent a lot of equipment. So if you do track serial numbers, but you're renting large quantities, let's say 50, each one with a unique serial number, you may not want to put in 50 lines on this rental transaction to track each serial number. So we could set it up this way and do quantity, let's say 10. Then I can go in the top left and hit assign serial numbers. So here's where I can then pick that item again and then pick a serial number. Here's my 10 serial numbers tied to this rental transaction. They're always visible by hitting assign serial numbers. I'd be able to see what serial numbers are assigned to this transaction. I can even go into, click the next button, see rental item list, which takes me back to this rental inventory list. And they still get assigned just like if you did it line by line, taking the serial number. Using barcoding. As soon as I create the rental transaction, basically pick the customer, I can hit use barcode. I then have to tell our software what we're doing. Well, we're entering a rental. Now I would just scan either the physical piece of equipment or scan, say, from that rental barcode sheet. Let's see if we can set one up here real quick. All I'm doing is setting up a couple actual barcodes that I have here in the office. All right, so I've set up my barcodes for a couple pieces of inventory. So if I go to that rental transaction again, I can hit Use Barcode. I can hit Enter a Rental. And this is where I can either print out that sheet, like I said, or scan right from the piece of inventory. If you look right behind this pop-up window, it added the item with the serial number right to the transaction. So you could just keep scanning. And it's going to add all the inventory based on the barcode. When I'm finished, I can just hit Close. Now I've got everything on the rental. Now let's say it's time to run a monthly billing. To run billing, I would go to Rental Info, Billing, Run Billing. Here it's asking me to pick an ending date in the current billing cycle. So this is basically the date you're running billing. Now let's assume the last time I ran billing was the 30th. So this next billing cycle is going to be the 1st through the 28th. We run a 28-day billing cycle. I'm going to pick the ending date, which would be the 28th. I'm going to tell the software that there are 28 days in my billing cycle. This is something you can adjust. Our software can do billing for any increment. If you want to run it weekly, you would just pick the ending date of your billing cycle and put in 7 days since your last billing. If you bill a full calendar month, well, that number is going to change from month to month. It's either going to be 30, 31, off chance 29, whatever the case may be. I can show the option to show the serial number, the location in the description that goes to QuickBooks. I can also combine customer invoices, meaning if you had multiple rental transactions for the same customer, maybe just different location, it can all go to one invoice when it goes to QuickBooks. And I would just hit Generate Preview Billing. Once that is finished, I can hit View Pre-Billing. This is just a batch screen before it goes to QuickBooks so I can double check what's about to be billed. If you look here, I have my first transaction for Linda. We've got all her inventory being billed from her, basically her delivery date to the ending date of the billing cycle. These items were not marked to prorate. That is why we're getting a full monthly charge of $224. The top item, I did tell it to prorate. That's why we're getting a $375. If we look at the first transaction we set up, these were all marked to prorate. So based on when it was rented, it prorated accordingly, except our delivery fee, which was just a flat rate, $15. I then would just pick the date that I want to appear on my QuickBooks invoice, and I would hit Post to QuickBooks at the top of the screen. That would then create all these invoices in QuickBooks for me automatically. Now let's say I got here and I noticed it wasn't quite right. I need to make an adjustment, or in this case, maybe this top one, I forgot to put in the serial number. I can just hit close on the batch. I can go, it'll take me back to my run billing screen. I can kind of back up and leave that billing batch. I could go back to item read, open my transaction again, make any corrections I needed to, and just rerun the billing. Maybe I wanted these all to be prorated and I forgot my serial number. Now if it's correct, I could send it to QuickBooks. Now, the way our software does billing is it considers every customer to be run every time you run billing. So it bills all the customers every month, let's say, for instance, or every week. This kind of creates a scenario where all your customers are on the same billing cycle. Everyone gets billed every 28 days. Now, we do have a lot of customers do run, I would say, kind of a modified monthly where if I have something out on the 8th, I need to be billed on the 8th of every month. And if someone else rented something on the 9th tomorrow, they're billed on the 9th every month. There are pluses and minuses to that. It obviously is a little bit more to manage if you're running a billing every day for the customers that rented something out 30 days ago on that day. This, to me, is a lot easier. One, you're doing a true 28-day billing cycle, which gives you 13 billing periods out of your customers every year instead of 12 if you were running a calendar month billing. So you get basically a whole extra cycle of revenue of the year. The only downside to doing it the way I'm demonstrating is you don't get any residual income coming in throughout the month. It all is in one large lump sum every 28 days. To run billing the way I just described, where you're basically billing based on their delivery date or their start date, we would need to create a billing group. Actually, we need to create quite a few. So if you double-click in billing group, clear these out, I could create basically one group for each day of the month. I'll just put in 9 for now. But I would go, let's say, 1 to 30 or 1 to 31. Since this customer, today's the 8th, we're going to put them in the 8th billing group. So let's say at the end of today, I would go to rental info, billing, run billing, and I would run billing for everybody in the 8th billing group. So that would be everything that was rented out either today or the 8th of last month. Tomorrow I would go to this screen and I would run the billing group of the 9th, so on and so forth as you go through each day in the month. Now, if I need to do a straight invoice into QuickBooks off a rental transaction, I can always just hit Post to QuickBooks at the top. It does not do any prorating, so it's going to bill this as a straight invoice. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you're going to see what the total would be, $463. So it's basically just going to take these totals and invoice it straight into QuickBooks. It'll carry over your serial numbers and everything else, the dates that you're billing for, just like if you ran the billing batch, but it's not going to do any prorating. This is the only way, or say the best way, you do bill on delivery, where you charge them the first month as soon as they rent something out. You could hit Post to QuickBooks right after you enter this. That way you have their first invoice already in QuickBooks ready to receive payment. And then from then forward, they're actually on that some sort of billing cycle to be billed monthly or weekly. Now, to get our items back into inventory, we must mark them as returned. We have a couple different ways to do this. On this transaction, I could do it line by line, so maybe they're not returning everything. I could just hit my date return. They're just returning this unit. And it's going to ask me, do I just want to invoice the one item they returned? Most likely you're going to bill them once they've returned everything, so you could hit no. It's going to put unit number 1002 back into my inventory, and it's going to save this to bill later with the rest of the transaction when all of it's been returned. If they're returning everything at once, the easiest way is to just go a little bit above the line items here where it says return date, put in the date that they're returning it, and hit return all. Do you want to return all the items? Press yes. Do you want to invoice these items? Press yes. And the transaction is closed. When I close this screen, it's no longer going to show up under items rented. Because it's been marked as returned, everything is back into inventory, and when I hit yes to invoice it now, it actually goes, if I go to billing and then view pending transactions, these bottom three are what it just added to this transaction. So it basically takes that transaction, puts it in the batch screen to run with the rest of your billing maybe at the end of the day. If I'm using the serial number, or excuse me, the barcodes, I would hit use barcode. I could hit return a rental. That's what we're going to be doing. And then I would start scanning. And notice I have the option to invoice on return. I would put in my return date. So let's say we're returning these on the 14th. I'm going to invoice on return, and I would just start scanning the barcodes that are returned. So once I've scanned everything, I can hit close on this window, and if you look, my date return has been filled in each time I scan the item barcode. I wouldn't have to do anything else. I can hit close on this. I could go into my rental info, billing, view pending transactions, and here it is, ready to go to QuickBooks. As I scanned, it was sending the items here, ready for billing. They were prorated accordingly because we marked off that they would be prorated. They rented it out on the 8th and returned it on the 14th, so it's only charging them $48, prorating that $224. Now, it also shows up, if I go into customer detail, and I can do that just by double-clicking the customer name. I can go to rentals, and it's going to show me anything this customer has rented. If I'm tracking equipment repair, let's say this equipment we have to pick up for service or we have to do something for it, I could just hit create a task, or I could hit the green plus sign at the top for task entry, get to task here. I may have a task type called out for repair, and whatever my notes are, that whatever's wrong with this piece of equipment or whatever we have to do to fix it. Then I'm going to want to select my rentals tab, get rentals, and then pick which item that we're sending out for repair possibly. I could assign it maybe to a subcontractor that I've set up in the system and create my task. This allows me to track that this unit is out for repair. When it is finished, we would just open up our task. We could use the line items to track the cost of this repair. And then in task details, you would put in your resolution, done, maybe repair completed. I could just hit post to notes. This would close out this task and get it off my task list. If I go into items rented, I can open up that transaction, and if I double-click that serial number, I can go to repairs. I would now see that repair we just created with the repair total that we set up, 110. We would see any of the notes. I also could go to my rental inventory list and hit rental repair list. And I see we have created one showing up here. Now we do have about 10 minutes or so left. Does anyone have any questions or anything specific on how to set something up? I'd be more than happy to answer. All right, well, if no one has any questions, I appreciate everyone coming to the class today. There are other rental videos available online that cover different scenarios. If you go to this miscellaneous info, you can go to view training videos. And we have a ton of rental and billing classes that you can go and watch and see different examples, different setups, different areas. Hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you.